Yay! Hi again, everyone. So my name is Peter. I didn't really hear everything he said before, but it's probably right or wrong. I don't mind. I'm going to talk a little bit about my life. I'm going to get rid of this first. It's a little bit in the way. I'll put it over here. This is my political belief over on the far left. Anyhow, so a little bit about my background. He's scared now. So my background is that I started with computers when I was really young. I was like 8, 9 something, and I got my first computer. And I started getting really into it. Like I played games, I programmed, I did all of these things that everyone does. And we really didn't talk about problems that came from this. Like we copied games, we copied software, everything. And this was the way that we grew up and learned everything. And when I started growing up a little bit more, people started saying that piracy or like copying things were bad. It was wrong, and it created a really bad society. And I got really pissed about this, and a lot of other people were really pissed about this. So we formed different projects around the idea of sharing information, because that for us was really, really important. And the most famous of these projects was, of course, the Pirate Bay. And the Pirate Bay was basically our way of testing a new technology called BitTorrent, which enabled people to share files freely and in a much more fair and open way. Normally, when you downloaded things on the internet, you had to share a lot of other movies or music, whatever, with people. And if you didn't have those, you couldn't really get access to a very elitist way of sharing information. And Pirate Bay used a different technology which enabled everyone to equally share. And the big thing about the Pirate Bay was that it had a purpose. It was the big difference between us and the other people using BitTorrent. Our purpose was to include everyone in sharing. We were really open about this, that we really wanted it to be for every single person in the world. And we had a lot of other sites running the same type of software, and they started getting a lot of threatening letters from Hollywood lawyers saying, like, you're enabling people to download this movie from us, and we're going to sue you for more money that exists in the world. And they were not joking about this. And most people that ran similar services to Pirate Bay, they were maybe 10 years younger than us, so like 15 at the time, and they got really scared when they get, a really fancy letter from Hollywood. We also got these letters, but they were not, we had a different way of approaching these letters. So this is a typical letter that we would get, which is something called a cease and desist letter. Basically, a company sends out a letter saying, you have to stop with this, and you have to sign this document saying that you agree to stop doing this and this illegal behavior and so on. But we decided that we wanted to make fun of these people because they were stupid according to us, still stupid according to me. So we took and did something fun with them. We replied to all of these letters and published both the letter and our reply on our website. We would tell them to go fuck themselves, and we would tell them, like, we don't care about your laws in the United States because you're not in Sweden. You have to invade our country first if you want to dictate our rules, and we know that you do that sometimes, but do it first this time. And we played around with this very much. And we tried to make this into some sort of fun game even, so to make them look as stupid as possible. And the whole idea was to get people to be really annoyed and get a lot of attention and a lot of discussion about why file sharing is good. This is my favorite letter that we got. It's from a German company that owns a lot of fonts. And we all use fonts. Every single day we use a different fonts. And especially they own Helvetica, which is the most used font in the world. You've seen it everywhere. There's even a documentary movie about this font. And they wanted us to sign this document saying that we have to stop allowing people to download these fonts, and we have to pay them 25,000 and so on. So we copied all of their letter to show them that you can do good things with copying, and then we remixed it a bit to show that, we can do something better. So they complained about all of these fonts, and of course, when we replied to them, we used all of these fonts in the reply. Just to prove that we did download these files, and we don't care. So we started, sending letters, and we never got a reply back. And people were really, really pissed at us because we were doing weird things and didn't know what we were doing. And we realized that we had some sort of momentum here. We had a lot of attention, and people got really, really interested in what we were doing. So we started flipping out a little bit. We started making this thing when they called us pirates. We started making that cool. We wanted to be called pirates. And whatever these people stuck on us, we kind of made it even worse. So Americans hated us, so they started calling us, communist and, equaled us to North Korea. So not only once, but twice, we actually, on 1st of April, said that we were hosted in North Korea. And people believed us, especially the second time, when we stole all of the IP space from the North Korean government and used that to actually host the Pirate Bay on. We did that just to prove a point that we could do that because we know the internet that well. And at this time, Pirate Bay started growing really, really big. How many have used the Pirate Bay in here? Hands? So basically all, the ones who didn't put it up doesn't understand that you used Pirate Bay. But Pirate Bay was, at its peak, more than half of all of the traffic in the fiber cables all over the internet. Over half of the traffic was the Pirate Bay. And we were 3 people running the Pirate Bay. And I always say we were one drug addict, one alcoholic, and then one more. And we didn't say who was whom. And it was really, really amateur hour. I know that Cisco and a lot of these different internet companies that create really expensive routers, they're trying to get internet to have 99% uptime. But for us, it was more like when one of the guys were drunk, he tripped over a cable in our data center, and the internet, half of the internet vanished for many days because he was, too drunk to be in the data center. So instead, it was very different. But when we started becoming really, really big, and press was talking about us all the time, there was documentaries all the time about us, and we got invited to basically every internet television show to talk about our policies and what we thought about the open internet and so on. We always won that argument. So our opponents, they were really, really pissed at us, and they started calling us something more than just pirates, because that didn't stick. So I'm going to show you, and I hope the sound works now, after I troll the guy, he's probably not happy with me. But I'm going to show you a clip from a movie about the Pirate Bay, one of the documentaries. And the sound does not work. This is always embarrassing, mostly for me. Oh.
Upphovsrätt skulle vara fel eller så. Det tror jag är en myt, och den har liksom den här copymist-sekten varit väldigt duktiga på att marknadsföra.
So this woman that you saw, she's the main responsible lawyer for Hollywood in Europe. She is the one that sued me and all of my friends, and she started calling us a cult very often when she was interviewed about us in the media. And for me it was really interesting because she has 2 clients. It's Hollywood, and then she is the European representative for the Church of Scientology, which you might have heard about. So when she calls you a cult, maybe, she should know something about that. But this was obviously a sort of PR war, because we won the war of getting people to use our services, and they were really upset about this. But in our typical tactic, we started thinking maybe there's something good about being a cult. So this happened.
This is wild. Some people seem to worship technology, but now it's being recognized as a religion. Yes, in Sweden, a church whose central tenet is the right to file share has been formally recognized by the Swedish government. It's called the Church of Copymeism, I guess, Copymeism or Copymism. Okay, and it claims that copy acting, sharing information through copying, is akin to a religious service.
So this is what we do. When you call us something, we make it cool. And it was kind of fun with this whole idea with having our own church, because it started as a joke. Because it costs 50 euros in Sweden to start a church, and you can believe in whatever you want, because we have a really liberal law in Sweden about religions. And the funniest thing is that you all have heard of this thing called peer-to-peer, P2P. We did the same, but we called it priest-to-priest communication. And what was really fun, and I'm so happy that this woman actually started calling us a cult, because we wouldn't have done this otherwise, is that all of these data retention directives and the monitoring laws everywhere in Europe, they have an exception. When you talk to your priest, the government is not allowed to listen into your conversation. So when having priest-to-priest communication, it's actually illegal for anyone to listen into that, with a 4-year prison sentence as, the problem for them. Much worse than copyright infringement. So this was really, really fun, and just as a side story, because it's so fun, this was obviously a joke. But people take things a little bit too serious sometimes. And the Church of Copymism started popping up everywhere in the world. And now it's in 30 different countries. And there's like tens of thousands of people that are actual members of this church. And I was at a conference in Serbia a few years after we started the church. And I was there with one of the other co-founders of the church. And a couple came up to me. One was Italian and one was Romanian. And they wanted to get married in our church because they were believers. And we started thinking, this is funny. They're like obviously on the joke and everything. And they started asking, what do you think should be a good way of having a copymist wedding? Because we're going to be the first. So what's going to be like the standard? And I always refer to one of my favorite things in the world. I said, there needs to be lasers. You have to have a lot of laser. Because lasers are awesome. So we're going to have lasers. And then we talked about all of weird shit that they wanted to do on their wedding. And then I asked, because I started realizing they might be a little bit too serious about this. So I asked one of the guys, like, do you understand that this is a joke, this whole copymist thing? And he said, I just think that you're testing my faith. So she was maybe right that we did start a church and a cult. But the problem I've had is like with all of these things, like I obviously do a lot of weird things, and it is to get people to think. Sometimes they think wrongly, but still it is to think. And I've started thinking and realizing that we are kind of fucking up our society quite a lot with all of the new technology that we're getting. So we're all using Facebook, right? Except me. And for me, that it is a problem that we started realizing that Facebook is violating all of our rights. They're looking into everything we're doing, and we're at the same time asking Mark Zuckerberg advice on how, to fix society and end wars and stuff like that. And when you look from the outside a little bit, you start realizing like we know what's going on the internet. We know the problems that have started coming with the internet, with democracy and all of these things. So it's like you've seen The Matrix. Neo has this choice of pills. Stay in the Matrix, and you're happy. You don't have to know what all of the shit's going on. Or take this pill, you get out of the Matrix, and you can see all of the problems going on. But we kind of took both of them. So like we know all of the problems, but we decided to stay within those problems. And for me, this is really, really weird. One of the most famous things that happened on the idea of net neutrality in internet war is probably ACTA, which was partly here in Poland stopped because of us pushing quite a lot against the governments of enforcing ACTA. ACTA was this trade agreement, for those who don't know, called the Anti-Counterfeit Trade Agreement, which was supposed to stop bad medicine and exploding batteries, pirated batteries and so on. But of maybe 25 pages, 22 of them were about censoring the internet. So it was a really weird law, and a lot of people were famously trying to stop this, and we pushed a lot of effort into this, trying to stop this. But after we actually managed to make ACTA disappear in the government, and we got it voted down, we started relaxing quite a lot about, like, we had this win. And for me, I realized, like, now we have TTIP and TIP and all of the other weird acronyms that sounds like HIV or whatever for the internet. We didn't win. We're just prolonging kind of the inevitable. We're getting all of these new laws, and the problem is that we're all part of them. So for me, like, I'm looking at this, that we're joking so much about politics, which is becoming more and more really, really important to us. Like everything that you're working with in here, you're a lot of people doing startups, and you're thinking that you're going to do your business model and you're going to base it on Facebook and Twitter and all of these things. At the same time, we're electing people like this douchebag to run our countries. And we don't really talk about the problems that we are creating. Like we're building all of these unicorns that the previous guys were talking about, and like we're celebrating them without talking about the issues that we actually fuck up in society. Like we have healthcare, but we're getting rid of that all over the world. We're doing all of these weird things. And we all, especially as developers and people that use the internet a lot, we have responsibility because we're building the new infrastructure for the society. And it's not even the new one. We're building the current infrastructure, and we're all very privileged to be able to do that, but we don't understand all of the issues that people have been fighting for, like freedom of speech, all of these things. So I want to show you a video clip from a guy that thought about this a little bit before me. This is George Orwell, for those who don't know him.
But he left one final warning.
1984 is, I believe, a quite terrifying masterpiece. So terrifying, in fact, I don't think I should like to read another like it.
I am not absolutely dissatisfied with it. I think it is a good idea, but the execution would have been better if I had not been under the influence of TB when I wrote it.
You once claimed that you have an ability to face unpleasant facts. Is that what you've demonstrated in 1984 by drawing an accurate portrait of the future?
I think that allowing for the book being, after all, a parody, something like 1984 could actually happen. This is the direction the world is going in at the present time. In our world, there will be no emotions except fear, rage, triumph, and self-abasement. The sex instinct will be eradicated. We shall abolish the orgasm. There will be no loyalty except loyalty to the party. But always there will be the intoxication of power. Always, at every moment, there will be the thrill of victory, the sensation of trampling on an enemy who is helpless. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. The moral to be drawn from this dangerous nightmare situation is a simple one. Don't let it happen. It depends on you.
Super inspiring dude, right? Super, super dark. But I actually agree. Like, how many people of you, when you create something, think about the bad things that it could lead to when you create something? Because we have this idea that technology is intrinsically good. It's not a bad thing, but it's a good thing. New technology is good. And development is good. There's always something new coming, and that's always good. But it's not. It has repercussions. A typical example is a Swedish company that wanted to build a technology for quality of service, because there was not enough bandwidth to go around in the beginning of the internet. And they created a really good tool to make sure that voice over IP and such worked on the fiber cables that they had access to. The same technology was later sold to Libya and was used by Gaddafi to actually track down people that were against his policies. Because in order to do quality of service, you have to listen to internet traffic. And people in Sweden didn't even think about this being good or bad. They just think, oh, of course it's good to be able to do this. But we have to actually understand that we have now responsibilities when we create technology. And just try and think about what the bad things are, so you don't end up in a situation where you didn't think about that at all. We're also a little bit privileged. Like, I think also in Poland, Pirate Bay is illegal, right? Is it censored? In some countries, at least, it's really, really censored. It's one of the most censored websites in the world. And people are laughing about this. Technologists are thinking, yeah, it's so simple to avoid. You just use a VPN or change DNS and so on. And we always laugh at how ineffective these blocks are. But at the same time, the privileged people can kind of circumvent these censorship measures, but we're leaving the rest behind. So instead of just saying, like, it doesn't affect me, maybe we should say, we don't agree with this becoming the new kind of policies of the internet. We need to have an open, neutral net in order to have a good society. So we can't really be blind to other people's problems, especially when we're kind of privileged. And at the same time, like, development is of course very rapid. When people talk about 3D printers, this is what we think. Kind of a fun thing that might do fun, small, useless objects. And then the scare on the other side, the people who are against this, it's very binary. You're for or against. There's like, oh yeah, you're going to make guns and you're going to kill people. Of course, that's going to be the first thing people print. Without even talking about the possibility of actually going to a store, buying a gun for almost no money whatsoever, or a knife for that matter, like you everywhere. It's always this hysteria. So we always end up like in the middle, in the between, like we're a little bit, unnuanced. My think is, rather, we're going to print food in the future. So I'm thinking about what does currently happen on the internet. Well, we have Spotify, we have Facebook, we have Twitter. We're centralizing everything. So we're going to have one company that does music, one company that does movies. We're going to probably have a company that owns all of the recipes in the future. That's kind of what's happening, because that's going to be the next business model. I don't want to have Foodify that I have to stream recipes from. I want to be able to own my own recipes and actually create my own food. And this is like not even a joke. This is something that will happen in the future. And if you look at the same time, like the responsibilities the company take, They don't take any responsibility whatsoever. And we're all saluting these people as being perfect. And they don't even create anything anymore. They just like realize that the best thing you can do is to do nothing. Just like be the middle guy and take all of the money. It's really, really interesting. Another thing that's happening is also like that we don't understand that issues actually fit together. So 10 years ago, when we talked about self-driving cars, people said it's impossible. Then, all of a sudden, a few years later, Google made the most successful driver in the world, like no accidents, and they've been driving hundreds and hundreds of miles and kilometers without accidents. And today, everyone is building the next self-driving car. And my obvious thinking, which a lot of people are agreeing with, is that in the future it will probably be illegal to drive a car because you're not going to be as good as a robot. And it's probably a good thing. But the problem is, when we agree to censor things on the internet, like an address, why shouldn't we censor an address offline? Because there's no real difference between online and offline anymore. So if we agree to allow people to censor like the Pirate Bay or some other website, if some crime happens at a square somewhere, someone might take that out of the GPS and make sure that your car can't drive there anymore. So we're building an IT infrastructure that is based on censorship. We're doing a lot of like weird things, a lot of new progress is coming, and we always think that we're on the top of it. But in 2035, we're going to make more technology each month than we've ever done before in kind of human history. But we don't talk about the backdraw of that, like what kind of society do we want? We're only thinking like technology will happen and we can't do anything about it. I'm really scared of that. At the same time, people complain a lot. I'm not going to show this too much. But we don't have a lot of different thinking. We don't do a lot of, when people talk about ads being a problem on the internet, they're saying like we have to ban ad blockers instead of talking about how can we do new business models, how can we find some other way of getting revenue. And my current job is more or less making people think differently about value. I did a small machine like half a year ago that got a lot of attention. It's called a copy machine. And the only thing this copy machine does is that it takes a song that it's a Raspberry Pi with an LCD display. It takes a song, the song Crazy by Gnarls Barkley, and it makes a copy of that and deletes it. And it only shows how many copies this has made and how much money that represents according to the music industry. And the idea is to make sure that people understand that one copied song does not equal $1.25 in lost revenue for the industry. We have to think differently about values. And right now, when the internet is taking over, we have to think differently about everything. And nothing is really wrong. Like, we can do a lot of weird things, you can think differently. Nothing is really wrong, but we're kind of scared of thinking outside the box. This is awesome thinking. Like, this guy, he really understands, how to think. We are laughing at this kind of because he's a weird guy, but this is like, we need more people like this. My problem is also that all of the things we're doing is becoming more and more political, and we're not caring about democracy anymore. So last year, there was a big election in Denmark, and I was looking into who was winning, because it was all about the racist party is going to take over or not. And everyone who was like interested in politics was saying like, this is the biggest and most important election in Denmark ever. And at the same time, there was a royal wedding in Sweden. And this is a screenshot from the Danish website, the Danish TV website, where you can see that the most viewed thing currently, this is an hour before election closes, is some sort of comedy show. Second is the Swedish royal wedding, so monarchy is more interesting than the third thing, which is the actual results from the election in Denmark. And this is scary to me, that we don't care about this. And I tried running for politics for this reason, because I thought that we might be able to discuss things. And I don't know if you know this story, but I was wanted by Interpol for a few years for Pirate Bay and some other stuff. And I realized that in order to piss people off, I should run for office, because then I could get diplomatic immunity and say, ha, 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 because I can't go to prison. I didn't get elected, but I'm going to end with showing you the video of me thinking differently about politics. And the basis here is that I think that when you look at politicians, they promise things they can't keep, or they talk shit about their opponents. So I wanted to do something different. And this is the most viewed EU Parliament campaign video ever in history, because it's so stupid. And this made me get 8 pages in the biggest newspaper on the election day in Finland, because it is so stupid. And stupid is sometimes really good. So sorry for this, I'm going to go and hide because it's embarrassing. thank you, I guess, something.
Thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you.
There are questions, so it's not the end. Let's move,
Okay.
let's
Okay.
move a little
Okay.
bit on.
Okay.
Because Alexa is wondering if this means that you are the first e-pope.
No, we have co-popes.
You have co-popes.
We don't have a pope, we have a co-pope. But then we also have like split churches. So we have different churches and there's fighting. So there's the Orthodox, then unorthodox, there's the quasi-Orthodox, different types of churches, and all of them think they have the right faith. I don't believe in any of them. I think they're all stupid. So that's...
There are multiple popes,
Yeah.
multiple churches, something that is hard to understand, to be
Decentralized
understood
churches.
for
Yeah.
Polish people, where there is basically one major church, of course. Any other questions in the audience? Microphones are around. I see someone in the back.
Hey.
Yeah. Thanks for the talk. Very inspiring. And I appreciate your clip with the Orwell, great dystopian novel, 84. But don't you think that actually Brave New World by Huxley is more accurate, to depict reality? Because people are wondering, where's this, dark, gloomy reality? We got Snapchat filters, selfish. Don't you think that, the Brave New World is the dystopia we're living in?
I don't believe in like dystopia or utopia. I think that we actually kind of lost the war already about having a free and open internet, which means a free and open society. But I don't think everything will be bad. And my view is like how to make sure it's at least bad as possible. Instead of having as good as possible, that's impossible. So, I don't think that everything is going to be better just because it's new. I think we have to understand that we have to find a balance and be a little bit more nuanced. So, I don't know if that answers your question. Okay.
Question at the right side, for you, the left.
Okay, so you talk so much about going to the politics and changing stuff and doing everything so differently. And
Thanks.
we heard about it all the time, and all the people that go to the politics and want to do it differently. And what's your recipe that you wouldn't be consumed by the system and, go by their rights, and you will believe in yourself all the time and all your stuff that you want to do differently?
No, to be honest, I don't think we can do a lot of things differently. I just hope that we would. But I think that the same thing is to stay in the matrix, because it's less painful than going outside and being alone. Like, I don't have Facebook, so I don't get invited to parties. It is actually infecting my everyday life, because everyone is lazy and invites everyone on Facebook. So if you want to do things differently, it's going to take a special type of person. I don't think most people want to be that person. You're a little bit insane if you want to be sane, right? So I don't have any inspiring words for that, like give up and then you're going to be happy.
Although you're not on Facebook, you have been invited for this evening's party.
Someone said before, yes.
Because it's even here. The consumptions are there. So
yeah. But
join the party.
Is there vegan food? Because I don't eat animals. No.
We can drink something without vegan stuff or meat. Another question.
Hi. Actually, I have two questions. First one is copyism a monotheistic religion? Can I believe in something else as well?
Sorry?
Is copyism a monotheistic religion? Can I believe in something else beyond copyism?
We go to this side because it's really hard to hear.
Okay.
The echo is really hard. Sorry.
Okay, I'm asking if copyism is monotheistic religion. Can I believe in something else?
You're not allowed to believe in anything. That's my religion.
Okay, thank you. But the
decided.
serious question I have is regarding the ACTA or any other trade agreement. Why do you believe it's inevitable for us to have something like that in force?
Why it's bad or why it's...
Why do you think we will come to that? While you've said in your speech that we're going to have it at some point.
Oh yeah, we're going to have that. And the thing is, like, we're part of a system that is really hard to kind of understand. So if you look at the European Union Parliament and the trade agreements between them and the United States, a lot of these things are secret documents. And the thing that I would say that these lobbyists do that run most of these things, that they are doing like a political DDoS attack. So they are sending in 10 law proposals and they will pass one of them and we will be happy that we stopped 9. But we actually lost 1. right? So the mentality that we have is like, we won because we didn't lose as much. But in reality, we actually lost everything because they passed the one that they know. And this is just tactics. And as long as we have this playing field that we're going to compromise, that's going to happen all the time. So I think that we are giving too much, and our politicians don't have mandates to do more, and we don't give them better mandates. Like, democracy is really broken. It's just the least bad thing we have. It's not a good system. It's just the least bad. And as long as we're like looking for democracy as the solution for everything, we're not going to find something which is better than democracy, even more fair than democracy. And so I think that is basically the principle that is broken.
Peter, thank you very much. Audience, thank you a lot for the questions, and a big applause for Peter.
Thanks.